What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to another episode of the NATO versus Warsaw Pact Group Build. We are back on our 1/48 scale Su-15 Flagon-A. Today we're going to go ahead and push forward on our natural metal finish. Now last time we overcoated everything in our gloss black primer by Alclad. This is awesome stuff. It's going to make a really nice base coat for our different metal colors. So you can see we've got a really shiny finish, and that's what they want when you go ahead and use Alclad paints. So I think we are ready to go ahead and start applying them and see what we can do. Now in terms of our overall color of metal, we have a couple different choices. I've got aircraft frame aluminum as well as Duraluminium, and I'm kind of leaning more towards the Duraluminium. I think that's not quite as dark as the aircraft frame aluminum is, and I think that's going to be a nice base coat. Then of course we're going to have to come back, we're going to mask off certain areas, and we're going to attempt to create a little bit of accents by maybe using a really light pass of maybe jet exhaust or maybe even aircraft frame aluminum. I don't really know for sure yet. Now other than that, we do have our front nose to go ahead and prime and paint, as well as our anti-glare panels right there in front of the cockpit and on top of both of the intakes. A lot of work to do here, guys. So let's go ahead and waste no time. Let's jump right into our time lapse, start painting up everything with our natural metal colors, and just see what we can do. Let's do it. And we are back, and as you can see, we have our entire aircraft overcoated in the Duraluminium color by Alclad. It looks beautiful. I love it. This is going to be a really good base coat, and now we can start trying to add in a little bit of natural metal variation. Boy, the paint really is smooth. Honestly, really pays to make sure your surface prep is on point before you start adding in that primer and also the actual paint itself. Now for the accent panels, I'm going to go ahead and try to mask off a couple of random panels here and there using my references as a guide. Now a lot of the pictures I see of the Su-15s either show a completely immaculate museum quality aircraft, and other times I see a little bit more natural metal look. So it has some panels picked out, different shades of metal. So I'm not really sure which one is more accurate since I see them both in my references. But I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and try to practice a little bit more of that natural metal variation. So I'm going to go ahead and go with my references that show a little bit of variation in different panels, especially around the front nose. There's a couple of very large prominent panels there, as well as the underside of the aircraft and even the tail. So we're going to go ahead and jump back into a time lapse, and we're going to start masking off certain areas that I want to come back later and paint. And I think for my accent color, I'm probably going to use a very, very light dusting of our jet exhaust. We're going to have to use jet exhaust on the very tail of the aircraft anyway. So why not go ahead and build up the colors just very minimally with a couple of quick passes of jet exhaust, which should just tint the metal ever so slightly. And you should have a different variation between the Duraluminium and then those different panels that will be jet exhaust. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into that time lapse. Let's continue pushing forward to get all these different areas masked off and painted with a little bit of our jet exhaust, also by Alclad. This is going to be a really interesting process, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. So let's get to masking, see what we can do. All right, everybody, a little bit of a tedious process, very time consuming as well, but I think we're on the right track. So what we've done here is overcoated everything with Duraluminium. We've come back in, we've masked off certain panels and picked those up with a little bit of jet exhaust, just lightly misted over top of those panels. That means it's not as stark as it would be had I just used straight jet exhaust like I did on the very back of the tail. So I'm happy with it. We're going to go ahead and move on now though with the green area, such as the nose, the rear tail. Now to do that, I'm going to go ahead and mask off those areas and I'm going to prime everything with some gray Stynylrez primer. That's going to make sure that everything is nice and uniform. We don't have one green darker than the other or too light of a green color. It should be pretty uniform across the entire aircraft. So we're going to go ahead and jump back into that time lapse. We're going to prime up the areas, paint up the green, and also hit the black areas right around the cockpit. So let's do it. All right, everybody, we are back, and let me go ahead and show you our Su-15 as it stands right now. As you can see, we've got our Duraluminium over the entire aircraft with a couple of panels here and there picked out with some light mistings of jet exhaust. We've got mission models, bright green or tractor green on the tail section as well as the nose and that little circle right there on the fuselage spine. We have our black sections here on the wings and also the anti-glare on the tops of the intakes. So overall, it's looking pretty decent. Now, I did not actually paint on the front windscreen anti-glare panel. The instructions tell me to do the entire thing black right up to that green nose, but I've actually seen a lot of references that show a more curved anti-glare panel. So I need to go ahead and do a little more research to figure out what shape that needs to be and how far back to take that, and I think that'll be next episode. But that green color came out beautifully. I'm really happy with how that has turned out. Nice and smooth. Using mission models with Vallejo thinner and also a little bit of Vallejo flow improver seems to work pretty well, so I might have to go ahead and stick with that. Now for things like the landing gears, we've actually attached the wheel to the strut, though we haven't glued it down. I want to do some extra work on the inside of that. A little bit of detail painting, as well as some weathering, maybe some brake cables. I don't really know for sure, but those are all ready to go, along with the missiles and the gun pods. we're looking pretty decent with this. So we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today, guys. I think we've done a lot of work and I'm happy with how this is turning out so far. We'll jump back in next episode and push it a little bit farther, and hopefully we'll be wrapping this kit up in no time flat. But until our next episode, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. We'll go ahead and see you back here on the next episode of the NATO versus Warsaw Pact Group Build and our Su-15 Flagon-A. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.